Hi, it's time for math. Are you ready? Here we go. Yesterday, you talked with Mrs. Torres about two-dimensional shapes, the flat shapes, and we talked about three-dimensional shapes, the solid shapes. And you went through all of your different vocabulary cards. And then you got to send Mrs. Torres and Chase and Lexi and Haley directions on what to do with those. You got to be the teacher. Well, today we're going to talk a lot about identifying the difference between the two-dimensional shapes, the flat shapes, and the three-dimensional shapes, the shapes that are a little bit round. We're going to compare. Do you remember what comparing means? To notice what's the same about them and what's different about them. So we're going to talk a lot about what's the same and what's different, and how do we know the difference? Okay, so up here on my chart, you'll notice that I have some shapes. Do you see those shapes? And on the top, I have these shapes. And then on the bottom, I drew these shapes. Now I'm going to tell you right away that the top shapes are the two-dimensional shapes. And the bottom ones are trying really hard to be the three-dimensional ones. Okay, so we'll notice that on the top, they have sides, they have vertices, that's the plural of vertex, vertices, sides, vertices, sides, vertices, but then this one doesn't have any sides or any vertices. What is that shape called? I hope you said circle. It is a circle. It has a curved line. A curved line. That makes it a circle because there are no sides and no vertices. Okay, so like I said, the top shapes are two-dimensional. They're flat. Two-dimensional shapes are flat. Our bottom ones, I tried to make look like they have some substance to them. Like you could hold them with two hands around it. And these are our three-dimensional shapes. And in our three-dimensional shapes, we still see those sides, vertices. Now, but here we have the curved lines. That shape is an oval, and this shape has an oval at the top and an oval at the bottom, and it's round all the way around. We can hold it, right? And that is called a cylinder. I'll write cylinder up here. I forgot how to spell cylinder. Interesting. Cylinder. And here we have a cone. It has a point at the top. It has a circle as a flat face on the bottom. This one is a cone. If you flip it upside down, it looks a little bit like an ice cream cone. Here, we use these all the time, right? We can build with these. This is a block, but we call it a cube. The three-dimensional shape is the cube. And then this looks like a circle, but it's round all the way around. It's a solid shape, and we call that the sphere. And I heard Mrs. Torres trying to teach you that fancy word, sphere, and then putting sphere in that word, right? Yes, so that's a sphere. Now I'm going to show you some examples of shapes, okay? So here we have a square. It's flat. Flat. It has sides, 4 of them. It has the vertices. It's a square. But I can look at this shape, and I can also see some squares. But it's a solid shape. It's not flat. This is a cube. This is a cube. A cube is a solid shape. It's a three-dimensional shape. and it has squares on it, but it's not flat like this one. So there's some things that are the same, but some things that are different, and that's how we compare. I have an index card. My index card, what shape is this? It's a two-dimensional shape. Two long sides, two short sides. This is a rectangle. A rectangle is a flat shape. It is a two-dimensional shape. I have another tissue box. This is a rectangle too. See? This has a rectangle. It has two long sides and two short sides. But this is a solid shape. This is a three-dimensional shape. I can wrap my arms around it and it won't slide on through. It's not flat. This is a solid shape. We can do the same with the circle. Remember how you told me that the circle has a curve all the way around? Remember these stickers? This one's bubble gum. Flat. This is a flat circle, this sticker. But this shape that looks similar on paper has no sides, no vertices. It's round all the way around. It has curved sides. But this is that fancy sphere, right? Circle is flat. Sphere is round and solid. It's like a ball. It's a three-dimensional shape. And last, this shape over here that I was telling you about, this blue one down here, the cylinder, sometimes we see this in cans. If you have cans of soup or you have a can of tuna fish, those cans are cylinders. Candles often come in a cylinder shape. We have the circle at the bottom, circle at the top, but it's a solid shape. You can wrap your hands around it. It's not flat. That's a cylinder. Make sense? So today in your work, we're going to be looking at different shapes that are either solid, three-dimensional, or flat, two-dimensional. So let me share my screen with you. Here it comes. And this is the very first page of your work. You're going to look at this room. And in this room, there are flat shapes, two-dimensional shapes, and there are solid shapes, three-dimensional shapes that you can play with and pick up. And we're going to talk about the different shapes in this picture and your directions at the bottom are telling you that you need two different colors. You're going to circle the flat shapes with one color, and you'll circle the solid shapes with another color. So I'm going to do a couple with you, and then you're going to do the rest all on your own. Okay, so I am looking for, move this down just a tiny little bit so I can see the whole room. I am looking for my flat shapes, my two-dimensional shapes, shapes that I cannot pick up and wrap my arms around and wrap my hands around and hold. And I notice that up on the wall, there are three different shapes. I see a triangle, I see a circle, and I see a square. Now they're on a flat piece of paper. So these are going to be two-dimensional shapes. I'm going to circle that one. I'm going to circle this one. And I'm going to circle this one because all three of those are two-dimensional. Do you see any other two-dimensional shapes? I see one. It's another drawing on paper. It's right here. This is what shape? It's the hexagon. So I'm going to circle that hexagon. All right. Now, I need my other color. And now I'm going to circle my three-dimensional shapes, my solid shapes. Do you see the cone? I see a cone. That is a three-dimensional shape. I'm going to circle it. Cubes. This color is not dark enough. Let's get a darker one. I see cubes. I see, do you remember what this was called? This one right here? That's the cylinder. The cylinder is right there. I'm going to circle it. I also see a sphere. Do you see the sphere? It's the beach ball. All right, so you're going to circle your two-dimensional shapes one color and your three-dimensional shapes another color. Okay? And I notice that these cubes have squares on them, but they're solid. Try to tell your grown-ups some of the things that you notice about the two-dimensional shapes that are flat and the three-dimensional shapes. You might talk about the number of sides, right? You might talk about whether or not they have vertices, how many vertices they have, whether they are flat two-dimensional or solid three-dimensional. All right, now we're going to slide on down because there's shapes at the bottom here. And you're going to tell what you notice about these shapes. Okay, you're going to tell what you notice about the cube, the sphere, the cone, and the cylinder. Okay, all right, then you'll move on to the next page. And this is where we practice. We think about it, and we're going to decide which ones are flat shapes, the two-dimensional shapes, and which ones are solid, the three-dimensional shapes. Your job on this page is to circle, put a circle around any three-dimensional shapes. So your circle will go around the three-dimensional shapes, just like you see here. We'll put a circle around this three-dimensional shape, and this is a three-dimensional shape. Hard to stay on the lines with this. And then you're going to put a square, four sides, equal size, around your two-dimensional shapes, around the triangle and around the hexagon. Those are flat shapes. You're gonna put a circle, not a circle, a square, a box. You're gonna put a box around the flat shapes. It would be good to use two different colors too, just so that you can see the difference, because sometimes it's hard to make a great square. So as you move down, you're gonna notice the same thing. You're going to have some flat shapes and you're going to have some solid shapes. Now I wanna point out something that will help you. The spheres and the circles look very similar. You can tell that it's a solid shape when you see this kind of white glow to it. It's trying to show you on paper, which is really hard, that this is a sphere. Notice here, you don't see that whitish kind of glow to it. It's flat. This is a two-dimensional shape because you don't see that. This is a flat oval. But the sphere and the cylinder, they have that kind of glow. So we're going to put circles around our three-dimensional shapes. This is a three-dimensional shape. It's a cylinder. And this, like I told you, it has that glow to it. This is the sphere. We're going to put a circle around that sphere. Then we're going to change color. And we're going to put a square around our flat shapes. This is a flat. What shape is it? It's a rectangle. So you're going to put a square. Try to have those vertices, those points. Stop. We want to have a corner. Stop, and then draw. Stop, draw. And then what do you think about this one? Yeah, I see that glow too. This is a cone. This is a three-dimensional cone. three-dimensional shapes. I'm going to change my color back to my red, and I'm going to put my circle around my cone. That's my three-dimensional shape, a solid shape. Solid versus flat, okay? And then you'll move on and you'll do the next row all on your own. You're going to circle the three-dimensionals, draw a square or a rectangle around the two-dimensional flat shapes, and then try to think about why you know you're right. Why are you correct? All right. Your next page, you're going to do a little bit of the same. Circle any three-dimensional shapes, draw a rectangle around the two-dimensional shapes, and tell why you're correct. Finally, on the last page, we have a bedroom again. You're going to circle the three-dimensional shapes, draw a rectangle around the two-dimensional shapes, use two different colors. It will definitely help. And then write how many you have. Write how many three-dimensionals you found. Write how many two-dimensionals you found. And that is your math for today. Good luck. Have fun. Take a picture, upload it. We'd love to see it. And I hope that you have an amazing day. I miss you guys.